G-Man Boxing. Do you know what I mean? Every single live he donates. I see him on other lives donating. He's got the bag on it.
Alright people, review of the week time. Before we start, let's just talk about the last few days. Been interesting, very interesting. So yeah, I got those media passes to the Joyce Hammer fights, which I'll talk about now in a sec. The fight itself and the card. That was crazy. You know, I mean, I didn't expect to be going to that. I expected to be going to that fight as a fan, and then was it Monday last week? I got an email saying, because I actually applied for that. It's funny enough, I applied for that weeks ago, maybe when the card was first announced, and the website never even gave like acknowledge. It literally just kind of froze, so it didn't kind of say you've completed it, wait and see, or sorry, it refresh it and do it. It didn't say anything. I just assumed it was gone. And then to kind of get word on Monday last week, I was like, okay, that's interesting. It was a great experience getting to do it, you know, seeing how it's done, just different from looking at it on, you know, like IFL on seconds out, actually being there, seeing it, you know, the press conference, the weigh-in, and obviously being that close to ringside. It was crazy. It was a great experience, and certainly it's one that I'll definitely want to do more of. It's obviously difficult because, you know, flying over to the UK, well, that's not difficult, but, you know, pricey in terms of, you know, getting hotels, accommodation, stuff like that. You know, at the end of the day, it's not a job, it's more a hobby at the minute doing that. So, you know, you got to I'd have to kind of pick and choose, and obviously taking time off from here as well, so in terms of being home. So it's a weird one, but definitely for sure I'll try and get more of them over the coming months, because that was just it's a tremendous experience. Like, it was crazy. In terms of the Joe Joyce Christian Hammer fight, let's start further down the card, because when I was talking to Mark Tibbs on Friday, he was very complimentary about Tommy Fletcher. Well, Tommy Fletcher was an interesting one I wanted to have a real good look at, and I seen his fight. I was there. The guy he was fighting was a Croatian guy. He had, I think, one win, and he didn't really give much resistance. Now, it's difficult to... The funniest thing is, right, the punches that sounded the loudest and the hardest were the shots that actually were landed on the gloves, and they were landed on the arms. You could hear a bit of a thud from them shots. The actual shots that put the opponent down, I mean, like, I think he went down very easy, and you can kind of tell maybe Tommy Fletcher wasn't exactly happy with how easy his opponent did go down following on, you know, from the first round, because I think he wanted to really make a statement. He had a big, you know, fan base there with him, and in terms of everything, he looked good. You know, I like what I seen. You know, there definitely appears to be natural power there. I do think the opponent went down easier than I think, you know, most of us would have liked to have seen. Would have liked to have seen, you know, how hard can this guy really crack? You know, can he really? How bad can he hurt these guys? You know, Mark Tibbs was saying he is like Wilder but with ring IQ, and he's one of the hardest punches he's ever taken on the pads. So that's a big statement, and you really kind of want to get a good look at that and see, you know, okay, how hard does this guy hit? I'm sure we'll get to see it in future fights. It was interesting. They built this fight at the weigh-in as a light heavyweight clash. Now, obviously, this wasn't. Both guys were well in the 190s. I think Tommy Fletcher was 197, so this was definitely cruiserweight. But Mark Tibbs he was saying at the weigh-in that they're looking at all possibilities. Now, Tibbs says that look at light heavyweight, but realistically probably going to be cruiserweight. And as Tommy Fletcher develops, because he's only 20 years old, most likely he'll end up at heavyweight before long, because he's only 20 years old. 3, 4, 5 years, I mean, by then you probably would be expecting him to go up to heavyweight, just for the sake of filling out. I mean, once you start filling out, developing your man strength and growing into your body, it just becomes ever more difficult to make weights, you know, especially weight like, you know, if you're easy making cruiserweight now, you might not be in a few years. Might not be anything to do with how you live outside the ring. Could be just naturally your body just getting bigger. So that's Tommy Fletcher. Tete Cunningham. You know, Zolani Tete when he lost to Casemiro a few years ago. That was a fight that I think Tete was doing quite well in up until the third round, and obviously he just got, bludgeoned, battered by Casemiro when that third round was taken out. I did kind of think at that point that's the end of Tete, just based upon that loss. But in this fight with Cunningham, it was not much happened for the first 3 rounds. Tete was getting the better of it. He wasn't taking any real risks. He was doing what he needed to do. There was a gap there, Jason Cunningham, to his credit, coming back from a loss to Conlon, I think that was his last loss prior to this. He moved down in weight. He picked up titles. He said he took the Gamaliel 5 fight at something like, I think, 3 weeks' notice, and was able to beat up Gamaliel 5, do everything but stop him, and I think that was for the Commonwealth title. And he would go on to have more success after that, pick up European, and really having an Indian summer in his career. Really having a good Indian summer. I think that it really showed 2 things. One, that Zolani Tete still has a lot left, and the gap between European level to world level is no joke. Just because you make it to European level does not mean that you can make that further jump to world level. It's no joke. And the way Zolani Tete was able to land that shot, the shot that originally started the trouble for Cunningham, he's just able to land that shot in so precisely and so accurately and so quickly. And Zolani Tete always had good power. He's one of them guys who's been able to carry it through the weights, from superfly up to bantamweight, and now obviously it's super bantam, and he's a terrific finisher. So Cunningham, it was a very bad knockout because his head didn't just hit the canvas, it hit it multiple times. It hit it, bounced up, and then hit it again. That's a worry when that happens. Thankfully, he was taken to hospital and it was announced that he was perfectly okay. Thank God for that. Because it's not, as I said, it's not just the knockout shot. It's the fact that his head's bounced up off the canvas a couple of times. That's not good, but thankfully Jason Cunningham is okay. It'd be interesting to see what he does next. Whether he decides, that's that, or whether he decides to make one last go of it. In terms of Tete, MJ Akhmadaliev and Stephen Fulton, hopefully they can get undisputed over the line. Maybe Frank Warren is looking at Zolani Tete and thinking, okay, these guys go for undisputed, and who knows, maybe the belts get fragmented. Tete, WBO, Warren, they could be looking at that thinking, 3-weight world champion. We could pick that up. You might get an easier touch. There you go. In terms of Joyce, Joyce beat up Christian Hammer. Hammer did better than I thought in the first round. My kind of fear was, especially when I seen him on the scales, I was thinking, oh no. Now he's never in the best shape, Christian Hammer, it has to be said. But I just thought, oh no, please tell me he's not going to look to survive and spoil and hold. He didn't, he landed some shots on Joyce. Joyce is easy to hit. There's no ifs or buts there. He puts a lot of faith in that chin. And if there comes a time when that chin, maybe just with age, maybe with punishment and sparring, it just deteriorates a little bit, then he's in trouble. Having said that, I do think that Joyce, I don't want to say he fights to the level of his opponent. That's the wrong way to say it. But I think that the level of the opponent is kind of how much he thinks about defense, if you get me. Like the bigger the threat from the opponent, the bigger the puncher, the more he's cognizant of defense. And as I said, he's not, Floyd Mayweather or Pernell Whitaker in there defensively, but you know what I mean. He's more conscious of what's coming back if the opponent is better, i.e. Daniel Dubois. He won that fight on the jab. He didn't really need to throw right hands because he knew Daniel Dubois. Now Joyce has a good chin, but he knew Dubois. The power is there. There's a threat there with that power. So, can't be just chin up in the air, hit me. Not going to be like that. Whereas Christian Hammer, you could kind of see the writing was on the wall, especially after the second round, that this was inevitable, really. And he goes and beats up Christian Hammer. The obviously plan for this was Joyce versus Joe Parker. Joe Parker, I'll see if I can get to tweets here. Are they still here? Well, they're not here on Twitter that I can find, and I'll be digging everywhere just to try and find them. But Joe Parker was tweeting Michael Hunter, and them two were kind of, don't say they were going back and forth, but there was hints there. I think Joseph Parker said Joe Joyce turned down 1.2 million, and I think Hunter said like he'd fight him for whatever. So potentially that could be an option there. Obviously Frank Warren at the press conference was saying that the fight's done, it's dead, it's gone, finished, see ya. And you know, Joe Parker, maybe Joseph Parker and his team looked at Joe Joyce and thought, look, we're confident of beating Joe Joyce. We definitely are. But look across the board at Sky. Potentially have a Lucas Brown fight there. And that's not to say that that's a big fight. It's not. But an easy enough touch. You get paid well for that. And you might be able to get a Dillian Whyte rematch. At this point, I would consider the Dillian Whyte fight a lot less risky than a Joe Joyce fight, personally. So maybe they're looking at that in terms of, look, we want to maximize revenue. We want to get put in a position for a title with probably the minimum risk that they feel they're going to get. And maybe they look at Joe Joyce and think, you know what, the size, the strength, the jab could cause Joe Parker a bit of bother. Dillian Whyte, his punch resistance is looking shot to pieces at this stage. You know, if Frank Warren was able to do an offer and get Dillian Whyte in there with Joe Joyce, I'd be picking Joe Joyce to win that fight, definitely. And I think he'd be a bit more cognizant about defense against Dillian Whyte. But I think that's likely what Parker is looking at. And in terms of Michael Hunter, that's a really good fight. That's a really, really, really good fight if Sky can get that over the line. Because Michael Hunter, he has a 3-fight deal with Sky. How do I know this? He said it on Twitter himself a couple of weeks ago. So Hughie Fury is obviously the fight they were planning. It was meant to happen over the weekend. That may be getting rescheduled. But you might look and say, actually, do you know what? A better fight is Joseph Parker versus Michael Hunter. I think certainly it's a better fight, personally. So that might be a fight that they'd look at doing. Maybe get both guys out, potentially on the same card. You never know. Lucas Brown versus Parker. I mean, we're hearing a lot of stories that might be happening. Look, Lucas Brown, I know he's not made any crazy money, so I can kind of get where he's coming from, but like, quit while you're ahead before, you know, you start getting serious damage. And then Michael Hunter against whoever, there you go. You have that fight on. Maybe could they get away with pay-per-view? I doubt very much they get away with that on pay-per-view, but you never know. Probably more so Dillian Whyte versus Parker, they could do that on pay-per-view. In terms of Dillian Whyte, nothing announced yet. The Boxer were teasing some big signings last week, and it was announced. I'll talk about that now in a wee bit. Liam Smith. I kind of thought it would be Dillian Whyte just based upon, you know, the way they were talking it. But if Dillian Whyte does decide to go to Sky and Boxer, I mean, there's a fight with Hughie Fury there potentially. I think Dillian Whyte stylistically would know that and I think stylistically Hughie Fury would be a very bad style for Dillian Whyte. And I think the Team Whyte would know, I'm sure they'd be confident in winning, but I'm sure they'd know that style would cause them massive problems, and they'd maybe fancy their chances against someone like Joseph Parker, who they already beat. So we'll keep an eye out for that. In terms of another fight that happened over the weekend, obviously I'm probably going to get this guy's name wrong. Jahai Optia, probably saying that name wrong. Optia. He beat Myris Briedis in Australia. Now, I didn't watch this fight live, and I've only really seen the highlights of it. It really did look like a fight of two halves. It looked like Optia, if I'm saying that name right, was doing quite well early on, and Briedis was able to get back into it. The general consensus is that the right guy won. It wasn't a robbery. It wasn't a hometown decision. The right guy deserved to win. And Myris Briedis, look, I always liked Myris Briedis as a fighter. I thought he was a very good fighter. Still do think he's a very good fighter. But the way it's not so, how do I say it? Maybe it makes sense now why he was calling out Jake Paul and doing raps about Jake Paul and looking to get Jake Paul over the line. Maybe he knew that he feels that he slowed down enough that he knows guys like Coley, Gullamarian, he could probably hang with them, but maybe he's not as confident as he was a couple of years ago. Maybe he knows his ability is starting to wane. This was a guy who talked about going up to heavyweight only about a year ago. So maybe Myris Briedis knew and felt it, that maybe he's not quite where he was, because he's 36, 37 now. So maybe he felt that. Maybe that's why he was thinking, get the Jake Paul fight over the line. Because I wasn't happy to see, like, he's a world champion fighter. Why are you calling out a YouTuber? You know, Jake Paul, Tommy Fury, that's a funny fight. They're both at the same level. Myris Briedis, some people believe he beat Alexander Usyk. I don't, but some people do. And he definitely gave Usyk his toughest fight out of anyone, Joshua Chisora included. So, tremendous fighter. Why is he calling out guys like Jake Paul? Will he take on will he try and get a rematch? I don't know. But Myris Briedis I always felt that if he'd fought a Cody would have won. As you can go back, I've said that before. I think if he'd fought a Cody would have beaten. In my opinion, anyway. In terms of some of the other news we have, Josh Taylor. Now, Josh Taylor, I don't know if I've already talked about this, but Josh Taylor vacated his WBC super lightweight world title. So that means now Jose Ramirez versus Jose Zepeda, the rematch will be ordered. Josh Taylor has no mandatory obligations now, so he's free to take on Jack Catterall in the rematch, and he's confirmed that that's exactly what he's, well, not exactly what he's going to do, but he's confirmed that he's vacated the WBC title. So, a few things to talk about. One, Jose Ramirez, the rumour mill was that him versus Conor Benn was a done deal. It looked like that was a done deal fight. So, him against Zepeda, a rematch. It's a good fight. It's for a world title. I'm sure Bob Arum and Top Rank will be saying to Ramirez, nope, Zepeda, rematch, world title. And Ramirez has a decent fan base. I'm sure Top Rank and Bob Arum would like to have another title back with Ramirez. So I'd be very surprised, personally, if we don't see Ramirez versus Zepeda 2. In terms of Conor Benn, who does he fight now? I mean, your guess is as good as mine. I still think they should just go down the Avanesian road. It's not a fight that I would say it's a done deal that he loses. He's got a good chance in that fight. I've heard Maurice Hooker mentioned again. Let's see. Hooker, I'd still favour Ben in that fight, but Hooker, I mean, I think his best days were at 140. I mean, God knows. I mean, I dread to think who we might see now at this stage, but don't get me wrong, I would have picked Ramirez to beat Ben, but it would have been a massively good step up. So we'll wait and see there. In terms of Josh Taylor, I mean, he's kind of been hinting on Twitter that the Jack Catterall fight is next. I'm glad Jack Catterall will get his shot. I do feel a bit... If Jack Catterall fights Josh Taylor and he beats him, yes, he'll get a unified world title, but he really should have been undisputed champion. Like, he really should have. I think Josh Taylor will take this fight, and I think he'll look better in this. I think he'll know himself that Jack Catterall is a real threat, that he is dangerous, that he is better than... And I think that I certainly, and I think many others felt that Jack Catterall is a decent fighter. He's not a bad fighter, not even close, but not on Josh Taylor's level. And I kind of thought that Catterall would probably be game, but would ultimately get taken out. You know, Josh Taylor has beaten guys better and done it in good fashion. And I guess that's what I felt. I didn't anticipate Jack Catterall to be as good as he was. And at the same time, I didn't expect Josh Taylor to be as poor as he was. And part of me feels that maybe Josh Taylor kind of felt that, you know, I've beaten Ramirez, I've beaten Prograis, I've beaten Baranchek. All these guys are better than Jack Catterall, on paper anyway. And if I can beat them, I don't even need to get out of third gear to beat Jack Catterall. But he was wrong. And he got one of the worst decisions I've certainly ever seen. So I think all that being said, we will see a better Josh Taylor this fight. If we don't, and it's fair judging, he loses. Simple as that. You know, he should have lost the first fight. And if there's fair judging, and it'd be interesting to see where it is. Will they do it in Scotland again? Will Jack Catterall be willing to try? I'm sure Jack Catterall... See, Jack Catterall, I think, knows that the Josh Taylor fight is really, for him, the only fight that makes sense as well. So it could be a case if he'd have to bend over and go back up to Scotland. I know he'd be very reluctant to do that based upon what happened last time. Could they do it on neutral ground? Could they do it in... Neither guy... I don't think Jack Catchell's from London. Could they do it in the O2? Wembley Arena? Could they do it there maybe? I don't know. Likelihood is, I mean, Josh Taylor has both titles, so I'd say more than likely they'd probably do that in Scotland again. But we'll wait and see. In terms of Sky, I'd probably get the rights to that. In terms of Sky, would they be able to get away with doing it on pay-per-view? I know they're looking to get more pay-per-views in. Obviously, Eubank versus Brook, not happening. So they're kind of looking, what fights can we conceivably put on pay-per-view? Has a bit of needle that fight. Could they look to put that on pay-per-view? I don't know. We'll wait and see. We'll wait and see for announcements. In terms of Sky and new signings, Liam Smith has signed a multi-fight promotional deal with Boxer and Sky Sports moving forward. Now, Liam Smith has been with Eddie Hearn now for 3 years, 2019. Well, I think it was the end of 2018 he announced he was moving over to Matchroom from Queensbury. But he made his debut in, I think, March of 2019. And to be honest with you, you know, when you look at his run at Matchroom compared to his Queensbury run, it started quite well at Matchroom. He got that fight headline in Liverpool against Sam Egerton, but then he was fighting on it. I think he fought in America on a small undercard, and then he fought in Mexico on a small undercard. Both Matchroom, his own shows, and it was real kind of. I got the impression that Liam Smith wasn't overly happy with how Eddie Hearn's trajectory of his career was going. I mean, if you look at Frank Warren, got him a world title against, I forget the guy's name, but it wasn't anyone special. Had a few defences of that. Got a Canelo fight. Got a Munguia fight. The Liam Williams fight. The first fight was for an interim WBO title. Now, Liam Smith missed weight for that fight. The one that he won on the cut. He missed weight for that. And then Canelo vacated, because Canelo was still 154 pound WBO champ at the time. So, essentially, Frank Warren would have gotten 2 world titles. He would have been a 2-time world champion had he made weight, because obviously after Canelo would have vacated, he would have been upgraded to full champion. So Liam Smith under Fisheye certainly had, you know, a decent run, you know, in terms of promotion wise. Under Eddie Hearn, it's not been the same. Yes, he got the Jesse Vargas fight, but I get the impression he wasn't overly happy going down to domestic level to fight Anthony Fowler. Not that he feared Fowler or anything like that, but I think he maybe felt like, look, I'm not in this game for domestic level dust-ups. I'm in this game for the Jesse Vargas, the bigger guys at 154. And maybe he feels now with Boxer he'll get that. The question in everyone's mind is it going to be Eubank versus Smith at 160 pounds on pay-per-view? They need someone to fight Eubank Jr. Is it Yalibek? Is that the guy's name at 160? I always get some of them names mixed up. But it's not Yalibek, is it? No, that's maybe it is. But the guy who just beat Danny Dignam. They do not want to put Eubank in with him. Not that they're afraid necessarily. Not that Eubank's afraid, but maybe Boxer are looking and thinking stylistically that fight don't work for Eubank. And it probably wouldn't sell as well as a Liam Smith fight. So maybe they're looking at Liam Smith and thinking, yeah, we have someone for Eubank now. Let's get this fight over the line. So we'll wait and see there what the story is there. In terms of some of the other pay-per-views that Boxer and Sky are looking to do, Michaela Maher versus Elisabeth Gardner, world title fight is set to co-feature on the Savannah Marshall Carissa Shields undercard, which will be set for September 10th at the O2. Now, we've still got no announcement on that fight yet, the Shields Marshall fight, so still have a good 2 months to go, so expect it sooner rather than later, that one, in the O2. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me, to be honest. It doesn't surprise me that it's going to be in the O2. I think that it could do that. No, shouldn't be any issues. Shouldn't be. I look forward to that fight. That's going to be a good fight. Shields Marshall. I think I can't see anything other than Shields, or it's not Shields, other than Marshall winning that fight. In terms of some of the other big fights that we have, Estrada versus Chocolatito 3, reportedly now set to take place in November, December. That was meant to take place this year, wasn't it? In March, but was it? Yeah, it was Estrada, I think, pulled out, and Chocolatito ended up fighting Martinez. So I look forward to the third fight. I mean, I personally, I feel Chocolatito was 2-0 against Estrada. As it is now, it's 1-1. So we'll see who will take the trilogy. We shall see who will take that. One thing, I never got a chance to have a chat with Frank Warren. And one of the questions I would have loved to have asked him was his thoughts on Eddie Hearn saying Beterbiev versus Yard is a mismatch. Total mismatch. He's a good domestic fighter, and he had a good fight with Kovalev. Beterbiev is a different beast. I would have loved to have seen his reaction to that. And I would have loved to have seen how he would have countered that by saying, what about Buatsi? In terms of that, is it a mismatch? Define mismatch. I mean, a mismatch is someone who I give zero chance to, like literally zero. Do I give Anthony Yard a chance in this fight? Yes, he's got a puncher's chance, certainly. And early on in the fight, he could be dangerous. But do I think he'll win? No, I don't. But out of the two fights that we could potentially have, Bivol versus Buatsi and Yard versus Beterbiev, the one I see with the highest likelihood of an upset is Beterbiev Yard. That's the one I see is more likely. For the simple reason, Bivol, I think, will just outbox Buatsi. And I think it'll be fairly run-of-the-mill, fairly straightforward. He'll outbox Buatsi. Maybe if Buatsi... You hear a lot of people say that Buatsi's chin isn't the best. I don't know. But some people have said that, look, that's one of the reasons why he's not been matched with punchers. It's one of the reasons why he's been matched quite slowly. So if it is as bad as some people say it is, you could see a stoppage. But with Bivol Yard, or not Bivol Yard, Beterbiev Yard, I see Beterbiev beating the crap out of Anthony Yard personally, but I do have it early on. Yard is explosive, he has power, he could go for it, and you never know what might happen. It's a funny old sport boxing when you have two big punters in there, you never know what might happen. So I think that's pretty much most of it. I obviously did see the Zone's actually first UK pay-per-view. I should actually talk about this as well. Will be KSI versus Alex Wasabi. Now, some people are going to have to help me with this. I know who KSI is, but I haven't a breeze who Alex Wasabi is. In fact, I'll actually do a quick Google search and just see, because yes, KSI I know, but Wasabi, he's a YouTuber too. On pay-per-view, he's 32 years old. Who the hell is this guy? On Boxing Social. It looks like he's done this before. It looks like he's boxed before. I see they have him there on Boxing Social after a fight. What does he do? He does... Yeah. Better known by... Okay, yeah, look. I'm not arse reading any of that, reading all that. But yeah, that's going to be their first pay-per-view. And interestingly, actually, there's still no word yet on who has the rights for AJ Usyk 2. I just assumed it would be the Zone when AJ announced he was signing a deal with the Zone, and all the things that go with it. So, as it stands, we don't know who's taking that fight, certainly in the UK. So, are Sky Sports looking to just put all their eggs in one basket, put a big bid in for this fight and see what happens? Or are the Zone thinking, we need to make sure that we get this fight? Hatman talked about it, and he's right in this sense, is that you go into a pub and you still don't see the Zone. And I'm sure he said in his recent live stream for fighters, that could be something as well that's kind of maybe swaying them towards Sky. And you can't help but agree with that, because, Anthony Joshua's big fight. I mean, put it like this, right? Imagine the Zone get that fight and it's on pay-per-view, right? And a lot of pubs don't have the Zone. A lot of them don't have a stream. They might not have a smart TV. They might not have, a TV that you could Bluetooth. How are you going to actually get the fights? Because some pubs, will be quite basic in a sense of TV, Skybox, there you go. They're not going to have like a smart TV. They're not going to have a TV with Bluetooth that you can cast from your phone. So, for fighters, maybe they're looking at that and thinking, the Zone is really, and I like the Zone, obviously, I love the Zone, but maybe it's only a small knit community. It's only going to the hardcores. If you want to get it out to more people, to arenas, venues, etc., if they've got a fairly basic, this is our setup, we can get Sky, we can get BT, we can't get the Zone, that's a bit of a turn off for them. And a lot of pubs would make money from having events like AJ Usyk 2 on, because you'll get people from who don't want to watch it at home, want to go to the pub with their mates. pubs crowded full of people. It's not a good look if there's pubs who can't get the zone and that's going on. You know, people going to the pub not able to watch it. So we'll watch this space and see who it lands on. Sky, the zone, you would imagine, are the two biggest bidders. I know ITV. I don't know if ITV pay-per-view is still a thing. I know when ITV were doing boxing, they had ITV pay-per-view. I don't know if they still even have that channel archived or what the story is with that. But you never know. ITV could chuck a bid in there and you could end up... Imagine that. AJ versus Usyk 2 on ITV pay-per-view. God knows. I mean, if it's open there, I mean, if it's open season for that, you know, you will have broadcasters bidding crazy amounts for that. And it probably will. Well, it's always going to be just the highest bidder gets it. So we'll watch the space. Hopefully we get an announcement on what platform it's going to be on sooner rather than later, so we can start planning ahead for it, because obviously there's going to be a lot of people doing watch-alongs for that, myself included. And I'd like to know, am I going to be getting the zone? Am I going to be getting it on Sky? Where am I going to get it from? So watch the space there. Very interestingly, who gets AJ Usyk too. In terms of everything else, I think we'll call it there. Back to normal this week. Chisora versus Pulev is this week, isn't it? Watch the space with that. We might do a watch along on Saturday for that if I'm not doing that. I don't think I am this Saturday anyway, but you never know, things change. So watch the space there. And we're back to basics. We're back to our videos. Back to normal this week, so we're all happy there. For now, lads and lasses, I'll leave you with that. Hope you enjoyed it. Smash the like button if you could. Hit 8k last week. Didn't really get a chance to do a proper video to just talk about it, but we hit 8k last week. Delighted. Have currently 8,150, so 150 subs in a week. Can't really complain about that. Hey, that 3 reasons Usyk lose the AJ video. That video was really done better than I thought it would do well, but not as well as it's done. And yeah, I mean, that's driven. Like, that is just done crazy. And that video is going to keep going until AJ Usyk happens. So God knows where. I think that's at like 19,000 views now. So God knows where that might finish at. It's crazy. Delighted with that one. So yeah, big up to everyone. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you enjoyed the interviews from the fight week. And hopefully we'll get more of them in the coming months. As I said at the start, I have to be a bit... I have to budget them. You know, I can't go to all of them. I'd love to. But just financially, it's just not viable. And geographically, it's just not viable. You know, flying over and flying back constantly, it just knackers you. It does. Like, it tires you. And it's stressful flying out, especially nowadays with the queues. It's crazy. But hopefully we'll get more of them soon. Obviously branch out. Bit of boxer, bit of matchroom. Don't want to just be doing Queensbury shows. So let's see. We'll do more of them, and hopefully we get some more opportunities from that. Fingers crossed. It'd be lovely. For now, lads and lasses, I'll talk to you then. Peace.